The morning sun touched the green hills of New Busan Colony. Children played in the streets. Parents worked in the fields and factories. It was a peaceful day. Like every other day on this small human world far from Earth, Admiral Kung Tae sat on his porch and watched his granddaughter Sua chase butterflies in the garden. She was 9 years old, with bright eyes and a laugh that made him forget his old age. After 40 years of military service, this was his reward. Peace, family, a quiet life. He had no idea that in 3 hours, everything would change. The Velen ships came without warning. 12 massive vessels appeared in the sky, blocking the sun. The colonists looked up in confusion. The Velens were known throughout the galaxy. They were powerful, ancient, and they had never shown interest in human worlds before. Kong Tae felt something cold in his chest. He had spent his life studying war. He knew the shape of danger. "Tua," he called. "Come inside now." But he was too slow. They all were. The Velen soldiers moved like shadows. They did not shoot. They did not burn. They simply took. Their technology was beyond anything humans had seen. Energy fields froze people in place. Transport beams pulled children from their parents' arms. Kong Tae fought. He was 67 years old, but he fought with everything he had. He broke one soldier's arm. He damaged another's armor. But a beam of light hit him, and he fell, unable to move. Watching helplessly as a Velen soldier carried Sua toward a transport ship, she screamed for him. "Grandfather! Grandfather!" He could not move. He could not speak. He could only watch. 12,000 children were taken that day. 12,000 families were destroyed. When the paralysis wore off, Kong Tae found himself lying in the dirt. Around him, parents screamed and cried. Some ran toward the landing zone, but the ships were already gone. The sky was empty and blue, as if nothing had happened. Earth's government sent urgent messages to the Galactic Assembly. This was an act of war. This was kidnapping. This was a crime against humanity. The Assembly's response came 3 days later. The Velen Dominion has expressed regret for any distress caused. They have agreed to provide compensation credits to affected families. The matter is considered resolved. Compensation, credits, money. For 12,000 children, Captain Lee Min-ho read the message aloud to his crew aboard the battleship. Indomitable. His hands shook with anger. He had lost his nephew in the taking. A boy of 7 who loved drawing pictures of spaceships. "They expect us to accept this," he said quietly. His first officer, a woman named Shin Hannah, stood beside him. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes were dark. "The Velens are too important to the Assembly," she said. "They provide rare minerals, advanced technology, military support. We are just one small species. One planet with a few colonies. We do not matter to them, and our children do not matter. Our children are experimental subjects now. The Velens are known for their biological research. They will study our young to understand human genetics, human development, human potential." Shin Hannah's voice was flat, but Min-ho could hear the rage beneath it. They took them because human children are genetically interesting. Nothing more. On Earth, the United Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered in one room for the first time in decades. They argued about diplomacy, about patience, about the long view. Then Admiral Kung Tae walked into the room. He was still wearing the clothes from that day. Dirt on his knees, a cut on his face. He had not slept. He had not eaten. He had traveled directly from New Busan, refusing to stop. The room fell silent. Kong Tae walked to the center podium. He looked at the assembled leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists, the most powerful people on Earth. "I served this planet for 40 years, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner. "I fought in 3 wars. I lost friends. I bled for humanity. And when I retired, I asked for only one thing, a peaceful life with my family." He paused. The silence was complete. 3 days ago, they took my granddaughter. They took 12,000 children, and the galaxy told us to accept payment. He looked at each leader in turn. I am not here to ask for revenge. I am not here to demand blood. I am here to ask one simple question. His eyes were wet, but his voice did not shake. Are we going to let them keep our children? The vote was unanimous. Earth declared war on the Velen Dominion. When the news reached the galaxy, they laughed. The Velens controlled 200 worlds. They had fleets that numbered in the thousands. Their technology was 3 centuries ahead of humanity's. Earth had 1 planet, 12 colonies, and a defensive fleet of 50 ships. The humans have gone mad, said one Velen official. They will calm down in a few months. They have no choice. Primitive emotional creatures, said a representative from another species. They do not understand how the galaxy works. War is calculated. War is strategic. You do not fight wars you cannot win. But Dr. Park Yuna understood something the galaxy did not. She was the lead xenobiologist aboard the research station Horizon. She had studied alien species for 20 years. She knew their histories, their psychologies, their patterns. They are making a mistake, she said to her colleague one night. All of them. What do you mean? Yuna looked out the window at the stars. They see us as weak because we are emotional. They think emotions make us irrational, unpredictable, easy to defeat. She shook her head slowly. They have never seen what happens when you threaten a human's child. They have never seen a parent fight for their baby. What happens? Yuna turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. They do not stop. They do not calculate odds. They do not accept defeat. They fight until they win or they die. And even then, others will continue the fight. That is what the Velens do not understand. That is what the whole galaxy does not understand. She looked back at the stars, toward Velen space. They did not steal from a weak species. They stole from a species that will burn the galaxy to ash before abandoning a single child. And they will learn this lesson. But by the time they understand, it will be far too late. On New Busan, Kang Tae stood in Sua's empty room. Her toys were still on the floor. Her drawings were still on the wall. A picture of him holding her hand. Grandfather and granddaughter. Together he touched the picture gently. I am coming, he whispered. I do not care how far you are. I do not care how many stand in my way. I will find you. I will bring you home. He closed his eyes. I promise. 6 months passed after Earth declared war. The galaxy waited for humanity to attack. They waited for the small human fleet to appear at Velen borders, to be destroyed in minutes, to teach these emotional creatures a lesson about power. But nothing happened. Earth went silent. They have accepted reality, said the Velen High Commander. They know they cannot win. Their declaration was empty noise, nothing more. The galaxy agreed. The humans had calmed down. They had realized their mistake. Soon, they would apologize and accept the compensation credits, like good little primitives. They were very, very wrong. Behind closed doors, humanity was changing. Every shipyard on Earth and its colonies worked day and night. Workers slept in shifts of 4 hours. Robots and humans worked side by side, building ships faster than anyone thought possible. Engineer Beak J stood in the largest shipyard on Mars and watched the skeletons of warships rise around him. He had not been home in 3 months. His wife understood. His daughter was one of the 12,000 taken. How many ships now? Asked Admiral Kang Tae, walking up beside him. 400 combat vessels. 60 transport ships. 200 support craft. Beak J wiped sweat from his forehead. We will have 600 by month 8. Kang Tae nodded slowly. He had come out of retirement the day after his speech. No one asked him to. No one needed to. And the weapons? Beak J smiled for the first time in months. The Velens think their shields are unbreakable. They are wrong. We studied every piece of Velen technology we could find. We found weaknesses. Small ones, but enough. He pulled up a hologram of a new missile design. I call it the Fury Protocol. It does not try to overwhelm their shields with power. It finds the cracks. It slips through. And then, he He made an explosion gesture with his hands. Their ships are strong from the outside, not so strong from the inside. Kung Tae looked at the design. How many can we build? As many as we need. Across the solar system, humanity prepared in ways the galaxy could not imagine. Soldiers trained 20 hours a day. Scientists worked without rest. Factories produced weapons, armor, ships, and medical supplies. Lieutenant Choi Sora sat in a flight simulator, practicing attack runs against Velen ship designs. She had run the same simulation 3,000 times. Her fingers knew every movement. Her eyes tracked every target. She did not think anymore. She simply acted. Her younger brother had been taken. He was 11 years old. His name was Jun. He liked playing video games and eating ice cream. She had promised to protect him. She had failed. Now she trained. Every hour. Every day. Because somewhere in Velen's space, Jun was waiting for her, and she would not fail again. Colonel Shinhana sat in a dark room, studying maps of Velen territory. She had not slept in 2 days. Empty coffee cups surrounded her desk. Her eyes moved across holographic displays showing Velen fleet positions, defense networks, and research facilities. 7 facilities. That was the key number. Spread the children across 7 locations, she told Kang Tae when he visited. Smart. It makes rescue harder. If we attack one, they can move the others, so we attack all 7 at once. Shinhana nodded. Yes, but we need to know exactly where they are first. Exact locations. Exact defenses. Exact schedules. Can we get that information? A small smile crossed her face. We already have people working on it. Ambassador Node was one of those people. He walked through the Galactic Assembly headquarters on Neutral Station Axis, smiling politely at alien diplomats. No one suspected anything. He was just the human ambassador, quiet and unimportant. But every conversation he had, every meeting he attended, every party he visited, he was gathering information, listening, watching. The Velans talked freely around him. They did not think humans were dangerous. They did not guard their words. One night, a drunk Velen officer mentioned the research facilities. He talked about the interesting human specimens and how they were progressing well. In their studies, Node smiled and nodded and refilled the officer's drink. Inside, his heart burned with cold fire. Dr. Park Yuna received the intelligence reports aboard the Horizon Station. She spread them across her desk and studied every detail. Facility locations, security protocols, scientist names, research schedules. Then she found something that made her stop breathing. They're alive, she whispered. All of them. They're keeping them alive. The children were in stasis pods, frozen between life and death. The Velens wanted to study them over years, maybe decades. They were not killing them. They were preserving them. This changed everything. Yuna ran to the communication room and sent an encrypted message to Earth. 3 words that would shape the entire war. Rescue is possible. When Kang Tae received the message, he sat alone for a long time. Sua was alive. His granddaughter was still out there waiting for him. Sleeping in a cold pod, dreaming of home, tears rolled down his face. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of hope. He stood up and walked to the war room where Captain Lee Min-ho and Colonel Shinhana were waiting. The mission has changed, he said. This is not about revenge anymore. This is a rescue operation. We go in, we get our children, and we bring them home. Min-ho nodded slowly. The Velens will not expect that. They think we want to destroy them. We will destroy whatever stands between us and those children, Shinhana said coldly. But destruction is not the goal. The children are the goal. Everything else is just obstacles. The next 3 months were a blur of planning and preparation. Every soldier, every pilot, every engineer knew the mission. Save the children. Bring them home. Nothing else mattered. Medikyun Era joined the rescue teams. Her niece was one of the 12,000. She had spent years learning how to heal people. Now she would learn how to heal people in the middle of a war zone. The children will be traumatized, she told her medical team. They will be scared, confused, maybe injured. We need to be ready for everything. Physical wounds, psychological wounds. We are not just soldiers. We are the first friendly faces these children will see. She looked at each team member. When they wake up, we need to be gentle. We need to be calm. We need to be the hands that carry them home. On the final day before the fleet departed, Captain Lee Minho addressed his crew. 400 ships filled the space around Earth, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. We are going to war, he said. His voice carried through speakers to every ship. But this is not a war for territory, not a war for power, not a war for revenge. He paused. Somewhere in enemy space, 12,000 children are waiting. They are scared. They are alone. They think no one is coming for them. His voice hardened. We are coming for them. We will cross the galaxy. We will fight through every fleet they throw at us. We will break down every door, tear through every defense, and we will not stop until every single child is safe. He looked at the stars ahead. The galaxy thinks we are weak. They think we are emotional and irrational. They are right. We are emotional. We love our children. And that love will be the fire that burns their empires down. He raised his hand in salute. For our children. Let's bring them home. 400 ships turned toward. Fell in space and jumped into the darkness between stars. The war had begun. The Velen commander of research facility. 3 was drinking tea when the alarm started. He looked up from his desk, annoyed. Probably another drill. His staff was always running drills. Then the ceiling exploded. Drop pods crashed through the roof like metal fists. They hit the floor and burst open, releasing soldiers in black armor. The soldiers moved faster than anything the commander had ever seen. They shot guards before the guards could raise their weapons. They breached doors before anyone could lock them. It was over in 4 minutes. The commander found himself on his knees, hands behind his head, staring at a human soldier. The human's face was hidden behind a helmet, but his voice was calm. Where are the children? I do not understand. What children? The soldier leaned closer. You have exactly 3 seconds to tell me where the human children are kept. 1. They are in the lower levels. Sublevel 4. Please, do not. Thank you. The soldier turned and ran toward the stairs. Behind him, more humans poured into the facility. They moved like ghosts, like shadows, like nightmares made of flesh and steel. Sergeant O'Heen led his team down the stairs. His nickname was the Ghost, because enemies never saw him coming. Today, he was not hiding. Today, he was breaking through every obstacle with pure force. Leveled to clear, shouted one of his soldiers. Keep moving! Heen responded. We stop when we find them. On sublevel 4, they found a locked door made of heavy metal. Velen security doors were supposed to be unbreakable. O'Hayon did not care. He placed explosive charges around the frame and stepped back. The explosion shook the entire floor. The door fell inward. Behind it was a room filled with pods. Glass pods, arranged in rows, each containing a sleeping child. Human children. Their faces were peaceful, frozen in stasis, unaware of the war being fought for them. O'Hien stopped. For a moment, the hardened soldier was gone. He was just a man, looking at stolen children, feeling his heart crack open. We found them, he said into his radio. His voice was rough. Sublevel 4. I count about 200 pods. Medek Yunara pushed past him and ran to the nearest pod. She scanned it with her equipment, checking the child's vital signs. They're alive, she said. Her eyes were wet. They are all alive. Can we wake them? Not safely. We need to transport the pods to our ships. Waking them here could be dangerous. O'Hayon nodded. You heard her. We take the pods. All of them. Move. His soldiers worked quickly, carefully lifting each pod and carrying them toward the extraction point. Human transport ships landed outside the facility, their doors open and waiting, above them in space. The real battle was happening. Lieutenant Choi Sora flew her fighter through a storm of energy weapons. Velen ships swarmed around the human fleet, firing everything they had. But the human ships did not retreat. They pushed forward, creating a corridor for the transport ships. Enemy cruiser on your left? Her wingman shouted, so did not think. She turned her ship, fired 2 missiles, and watched the cruiser's shields flicker and die. A moment later, the cruiser exploded. Target down. Moving to next. Her brother was not in this facility. She knew that. But other children were here? Other brothers and sisters? Other sons and daughters. She would fight just as hard for them. Across 7 star systems, the same scene played out. 7 facilities. 7 simultaneous attacks. 7 battles fought at the same moment. The Velens were caught completely off guard. They had expected humanity to attack their main fleet, to try some foolish direct assault that would fail immediately. They never imagined that humans would find their hidden research facilities. They never imagined that the attack would come all at once. Commander Torvis was aboard the Velen flagship when the reports started coming in. Facility 3 is breached. Facility 1 has fallen. We have lost contact with Facility 5. Torvis stared at the tactical display. Red alerts covered the map. Human ships were everywhere, moving with terrifying coordination. How is this possible? Whispered one of his officers. They are primitives. They should not have this capability. Torvis watched a human destroyer take 3 direct hits and keep fighting. He watched human soldiers on ground cameras bleeding from wounds that should have stopped them, still advancing, still fighting. We were wrong, he said quietly. We were very wrong about them. He sent an urgent message to the Velen High Council. These creatures do not fight like soldiers. They fight like parents. Recommend immediate reinforcement of all facilities and preparation for extended conflict. The council read his message and dismissed it. Torvis was overreacting. The humans had won a few small victories. Nothing more. The Dominion would crush them soon enough. On the ground of Facility 3, the extraction was almost complete. 1,800 pods had been loaded onto transport ships. Soldiers held defensive positions around the landing zone, fighting off Velen counterattacks. A young soldier named Kim Woo carried the last pod toward the transport ship. A Velen shot hit his shoulder, spinning him around. He fell but did not drop the pod. He kept his arms wrapped around it, protecting the sleeping child inside. Woo is down. Someone shouted, Un. Hoon ran to him. Can you move? Kim Woo looked up. Blood ran down his arm. Pain twisted his face. But his eyes were clear. I can move. Help me up. Oheen grabbed his good arm and pulled him to his feet. Together, they carried the pod the last 50 meters to the transport ship. Inside the ship, Yunara was already treating the wounded. She saw Woo's shoulder and pointed to a medical bed. Sit down. Let me look at that. The child first. The child is in stasis. She is fine. You are bleeding. Sit down. Woo sat. Era worked quickly, cleaning and sealing the wound. Outside, the transport ship lifted off. Through the window, they could see human fighters escorting them away from the planet. We got them, Woo said softly. We actually got them, Ara nodded. Her hands were covered in blood, but she was smiling. 1,847 children from this facility alone, safe. The news spread across the galaxy. Humans had attacked 7 Velen research facilities simultaneously. They had rescued over 8,000 children in a single day. They had fought through superior Velen forces and won. Other species watched the footage in shock. They saw human soldiers injured and burning, still fighting. They saw humans carrying children through fire and explosions. They saw the look in human eyes, not hatred, not rage, but something deeper. Something pure love, desperate, burning, unstoppable love, on Earth. Families gathered around screens, watching for news. When the first transport ships returned, crowds filled the spaceports. Parents pushed through security barriers. searching for their children among the rescued. A mother found her son. She fell to her knees, holding him, crying so hard she could not speak. Around her, similar scenes played out hundreds of times. Families reunited. Children returned. But not all children were rescued. 4,000 remained in Velen hands. 2 facilities had held against the attack. Facility 7 and Facility 9, Admiral Kung Tae stood in the war room, staring at the map. Hua was in Facility 7, the most heavily defended location in Valone space. Located on the Velen homeworld itself. We hit them hard, Shinhana said. They will be ready for us now. Facility 7 will be a fortress. I know. We lost 40 ships today. Good ships. Good people. Another assault like this will cost us more. I know. Shinhana walked to stand beside him. The council is talking about negotiating. We saved most of the children. Maybe we can trade for the rest. End the war. Save lives. Kong Tae was silent for a long moment. Would you accept that? He asked finally. If your child was in that facility... Shinhana did not answer. She did not need to. We keep fighting, Kung Tae said. We rescue all of them. Every single one. Or we die trying. He looked at the map at the distant star that held his granddaughter. I promised her I was coming. And I keep my promises. 3 months into the war, the galaxy finally started paying attention. Observer Ren was a journalist from a neutral species called the Sindari. His job was to document conflicts across the galaxy. He had covered 17 wars in his career. He thought he understood war. He thought he understood violence. Then he spent 2 weeks with the human military. The first thing he noticed was that humans did not sleep like other species. They slept in short periods, 4 or 5 hours at most, then returned to work. They drank bitter black liquid called coffee that kept them awake. They worked through exhaustion that would have killed a Sindari. The second thing he noticed was how they treated their wounded in most galactic armies. Badly wounded soldiers were left behind or killed mercifully. Resources were limited. It made logical sense. But humans did not do this. They carried their wounded no matter how difficult. They risked lives to save lives. They refused to leave anyone behind. It does not make sense, Ren said to Colonel Shinhana one day. You lose more soldiers trying to save wounded soldiers. The mathematics are clear. Shinhana looked at him with cold eyes. We do not fight with mathematics. Then what do you fight with? Each other. She turned back to her tactical display. Every soldier knows that if they fall, we will come for them. That knowledge gives them courage. That courage wins battles. Your mathematics does not account for courage. Ren thought about this for a long time. The Velen Dominion was not collapsing, but it was struggling. They threw fleet after fleet at the human forces, but nothing worked the way they expected. Humans adapted faster than any species they had ever fought. The first time Velens used a new weapon, humans died. The second time, humans survived. The third time, humans had countermeasures. By the fourth time, humans were using the weapon against the Velens. Impossible, said Velen, Admiral Tehran. It takes years to develop countermeasures. They are doing it in days. Commander Torvis shook his head. They are not developing countermeasures. They are improvising, adapting. They see a weapon once, and their minds immediately start thinking of ways to defeat it. How? Because that is how their species evolved. On their planet, they were not the strongest or fastest. They survived by thinking, by adapting, by never giving up. Torvis looked at the tactical display showing human fleet movements. We are fighting millions of years of evolution. They are built for this. On Earth, families of the remaining 4,000 children waited. They gathered in support groups. They prayed. They hoped. Every day, they watched the news for updates. Park Yuna worked around the clock, analyzing Velen defenses. She had not seen sunlight in weeks. Her eyes were red from staring at screens. But she would not stop. The main fleet is here, she told the War Council, pointing at a holographic map. They have pulled ships from across their empire to defend the homeworld. 500 combat vessels, maybe more, in Facility 7. Underground. Deep underground. Protected by multiple shield layers, ground forces, and air defense systems. Even if we break through the fleet, reaching the facility will be extremely difficult. Admiral Kong Tae studied the map. 2,000 children remained in Facility 7. 2,000 reasons to keep fighting. What about Facility 9? Asked Captain Lee Minho. Destroyed, Yuna said quietly. The Velans destroyed it themselves when our forces got close. They did not want us to rescue anyone else. The room went silent. Destroyed. 2,000 children killed rather than rescued. The Velans had murdered them rather than let them go home. Kong Tae closed his eyes. The weight of grief pressed down on him. 2,000 children who would never see their families again. 2,000 lives ended by cruelty. We cannot let that happen to Facility 7, he said finally. We must move fast, before they decide to destroy that one too. On the neutral station axis, the Galactic Assembly held an emergency meeting. Species that had ignored the war for months now demanded answers. The humans are winning, said Elder Mira, leader of the Assembly. A species we considered primitive is defeating one of the most powerful empires in known space. How's this possible? No one had a good answer. They're dangerous, said a Velan representative. Irrational, emotional. They must be stopped. You started this war, said another delegate. You took their children? We took specimens for research? It is standard practice. Not for them. Elder Mira leaned forward. That is what none of us understood. We thought they would accept the loss, like other species do. We thought they would move on. We were wrong. She pulled up footage from the war. Human soldiers fighting through injuries. Human pilots flying suicide missions to protect transport ships. Human commanders refusing surrender even when defeat seems certain. They are not fighting for territory. They are not fighting for power. They are fighting for their children. And they will not stop until every child is safe or every human is dead. The room was silent. There is a lesson here, Mira continued. For all of us. The humans call it love. We call it irrationality. But whatever we call it, it is stronger than our logic. Stronger than our calculations. Strong enough to burn empires? She looked at the Velan representative. Return the children? Now end this before they end you. The Velan representative laughed. We have 500 ships. They have 300. We will crush them. Observer Ren sent his reports to every news outlet in the galaxy. One story in particular spread across the stars. It was about a soldier named Kim Woo, whose unit had been ambushed during a supply run. Half his team was killed. He was wounded badly, a piece of metal in his leg. The extraction point was 12 kilometers away. He should have hidden and waited for rescue. But there was a child with them. A girl rescued from an earlier mission, being transported to a medical ship. Her name was Bo Young. She was 6 years old. Kim Woo carried her for 12 kilometers. Through enemy territory, with a leg that was bleeding and broken, Kim Woo carried Bu Young on his back. He walked through the night. He hid from Velan patrols. He did not stop to rest. When he finally reached the extraction point, he collapsed. Medics rushed to him, thinking he was dead. But he opened his eyes and said one thing, "Is she safe?" When Ren interviewed Wu later, he asked why. Why not leave the girl? Why risk death for a child that was not his? Wu looked at him like the question made no sense. She is someone's daughter, he said simply. That is enough. Ren included that line in his report. It spread across the galaxy. Species that had never understood humans suddenly began to understand. They are not fighting for themselves. They are fighting for each other. For children they have never met. For families they will never know. They see every child as their child. Every loss as their loss. This is what makes them dangerous. This is what makes them strong. The Galactic Assembly sent one final message to the Velan Dominion. Return the children immediately. Stop the war. Accept peace. The Velans refused. They had lost too much to surrender now. Their pride would not allow it. Colonel Shinhana received the news. She was standing on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, looking at the stars toward Velen's space. "They will not surrender," she said to Kong Tae. "No, the final assault will cost us half our remaining fleet. Maybe more, I know." Shinhana was silent for a moment. "The council is asking if it is worth it. 2,000 children against thousands of soldiers, thousands of pilots, thousands of families who will lose parents and siblings." Kong Tae thought of Sue. He thought of the other 2,000 children, sleeping in pods, waiting for rescue. "Ask the families," he said. "Ask the parents who are waiting. Ask them if 2,000 children are worth fighting for." Shinhana nodded slowly. "I already know what they will say. So do I." He turned to face the crew. "Set course for the Velen homeworld. All ships. This ends now." 300 human ships turned toward the enemy. Behind them, Earth waited. Families prayed. Hope flickered like a candle in darkness. The final battle was coming. The Velen homeworld hung in space like a blue and silver jewel. 500 warships surrounded it, ready to defend their people, their honor, their empire. 300 human ships appeared from hyperspace. Admiral Kong Tae stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the enemy fleet. Outnumbered, outgunned, fighting in enemy territory. Far from home, none of that mattered. "All ships," he said calmly, "begin the attack." The battle for the Velen homeworld was the largest space battle in galactic history. Thousands of weapons fired at once. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Debris filled the space between fleets like metal rain. Human ships pushed forward through the fire. They did not try to win the space battle. They only needed to create an opening. One opening. One path to the planet's surface. Lieutenant Choi Sora flew her fighter through the chaos. Her squadron followed her, trusting her completely. They had trained for this moment. They had dreamed of this moment. "Enemy cruiser blocking the corridor," her wingman reported. "How then we go through it?" Sora replied. She fired everything her small ship carried at the cruiser's weak point. Missiles, torpedoes, energy blasts. Her wingman did the same. The cruiser's shields flickered, failed, and the ship broke apart. "Corridors open! Transport ships, you are clear." 50 transport ships dove toward the planet. They carried ground troops, medical teams, and empty pods ready to hold rescued children. They flew through fire and death, protected by fighters that sacrificed themselves to keep them safe. Captain Lee. Minho watched his ship's damage reports climb higher and higher. Shields failing. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Engine power dropping.
Ow!
"Sir, we cannot take much more," his first officer said. "We do not need much more," Minho replied. "We just need enough time for the ground teams." A Velen torpedo hit the Indomitable's port side. The ship shook violently. Fires erupted on multiple decks. Crew members were thrown against walls. Minho grabbed his console and held on. Status? Main weapons offline. Secondary shields down. "We're venting atmosphere on decks 7 through 9. Can we still fly?" "Barely." Minho nodded. "Then we keep flying." On the planet's surface, the transport ships landed hard. Ground troops poured out, immediately taking fire from Velen defenders. Sergeant O'Han led the advance, his team cutting through enemy positions with terrifying efficiency. They had studied Facility 7 for months. They knew every corridor, every room, every defense system. They moved through the enemy base like they had been there before. Admiral Kang Tae was with them. No one had tried to stop him from joining the ground assault. He was 67 years old, slower than the young soldiers around him. But his aim was still perfect, and his determination was absolute. "Main entrance is blocked," O'Han reported. "Heavy weapons? Reinforced positions?" "Then we do not use the main entrance," Kang Tae said. He pointed to a maintenance shaft on his tactical display. "There it leads to sublevel 2. That shaft is not on our maps. It is on the Velen engineering documents we captured last month." Kang Tae smiled grimly. "I have read every document about this facility. Every report. Every blueprint. I know this place better than the Velens do." They moved to the maintenance shaft. It was small, dirty, and dark. They crawled through it one by one, moving toward the facility's heart. In space, the battle continued. Human ships were dying. 100 ships lost. Then 120. Then 150. Nearly half the fleet, gone in less than an hour, but they were winning. The Velen fleet was breaking apart. Their commanders were panicking. They had expected the humans to retreat when losses got high. Instead, the humans fought harder. Colonel Shinhena commanded the battle from the flagship's damaged bridge. Blood ran down her face from a head wound. She ignored it. All surviving ships maintain pressure. Ground teams report they are close, and we've lost contact with 17 ships. We do not know if they're destroyed or just damaged. Assume they're still fighting. Assume everyone is still fighting. Underground, the assault team reached the stasis chamber. 2,000 pods, arranged in perfect rows, each containing a sleeping child. The sight took their breath away. Kim Woo, his shoulder still healing from his previous wound, was the first to enter. He walked between the pods, looking at the small faces behind the glass. "They're here," he said softly. "They're all here." Medek Unera ran scans on the nearest pods. Vital signs are stable. They are alive. All of them. Kang Tae moved through the rows, searching. His heart pounded in his chest. So many children. So many stolen lives? Where was she? Where was who? Then he saw her, third row. Fifth pod. A small girl with dark hair, her face peaceful in frozen sleep. She had grown in the months since he last saw her. She looked older, but it was her, his granddaughter. His legs gave out. He fell to his knees beside her pod, his hand pressed against the glass. "I found you," he whispered. "I found you." Tears ran down his face. Around him, soldiers were crying too. These hard men and women who had fought through fire and death, crying like children themselves. "Sir," Ohayon said gently, "we need to move. The Velens will counterattack." Kang Tae nodded. He stood up slowly, wiping his face. Begin extraction. Every pod. Every child. Leave no one behind. The extraction took 2 hours. 2 hours of carrying pods through narrow passages, fighting off Velen attacks, loading children onto transport ships. 2 hours of hope and terror and desperate work. When the last pod was loaded, they ran for the ships. Velen soldiers were closing in from all directions. The transport ships lifted off under heavy fire, their pilots pushing the engines to their limits. In space, the human fleet formed a protective wall around the transports. Battered, broken ships stood between the children and the enemy. Ships with no shields left, no weapons left, nothing but hulls and courage. The Valens tried one final attack, a wave of missiles aimed at the transport ships. Human fighters intercepted them, sacrificing themselves to stop the missiles. Choi Sora was one of them. Her fighter was hit, systems failing, and she saw a missile heading straight for a transport ship. Without thinking, she flew into its path. The explosion destroyed her ship. But the transport survived. Her last thought was of her brother Jun, safe at home now. She had kept her promise. When the human fleet finally jumped away from the Velen homeworld, it left behind 160 destroyed ships. Thousands of dead soldiers. The price of victory, but they also took 2,000 children. Every single one. Not one left behind. The Velen dominions surrendered the next day. They did not surrender because they were conquered. Humanity had never occupied a single Velen world. They surrendered because they finally understood the humans would never stop. They would keep fighting, keep dying, keep coming, until every child was home. And the Velen simply could not fight that kind of enemy. Ambassador Node addressed the Galactic Assembly 1 week later. Every species watched. Every world listened. "You asked why we declared war," he said. "You called us primitive, emotional, irrational. You were right. We are all of those things." He paused. "We love fiercely. We protect savagely. We remember forever. We did not fight for power. We did not fight for revenge. We fought because 12,000 children cried for home, and no force in this universe will stop humanity from answering that cry. He looked at each delegate in turn. Remember this? Remember what we fight for, and never touch our children again. 6 months later, Admiral Kung Tae sat on a porch on Earth. The sun was warm. Birds sang in the trees. Peace, finally. Real peace. Su-Ah played in the garden with other rescued children. She still had nightmares sometimes. She still woke up crying. But she was healing. They all were Dr. Park Yuna visited, bringing news. 17 species had formally requested human protection for their colony worlds. The galaxy was changing. Humanity was no longer seen as weak or primitive. Was it worth it? Yuna asked, sitting beside him. Everything we sacrificed. All those lives lost? Kung Tae watched Suwa laugh as she chased a butterfly. The same butterflies, the same garden, the same granddaughter. As if the nightmare had never happened. But it had happened, and they had fought through it together. Ask me that question again, he said softly. But this time, look at her face when you do. Yuna looked at Suwa. At her smile, at the joy in her eyes, at the child who had been stolen and returned, who had been lost and found. She did not ask the question again. She did not need to. The answer was there in a little girl's laughter, in the warmth of the sun, in the peace that humanity had fought and bled and died to protect. Some things were worth any price. Some things were worth everything. Their children were worth everything, and now the galaxy knew it too.